In the previous lecture, we started to discuss about the diffraction limited beam. So what is diffraction limited beam? It is the beam which gets diverged only due to diffraction. So a beam of light is said to be diffraction limited if it diverges only due to diffraction, and the example of diffraction limited beam is the laser beam. So we had seen in the previous lecture that the light beam gets diverged due to the length of the source which we are taking. So we took a tiny filament and we saw that due to the length of the filament, the beam which was emerging out of the convex lens, it had a particular angular spread, and that angular spread was given by delta theta, and that delta theta, it came out to be equal to the length of the source divided by the focal length of the convex lens which we are using. So this is the formula of the angular spread of the beam due to the length of the point, so due to the length of the source. So if there is a point source, then there is no divergence due to the length of the source, because length of the source in that case is 0. So delta theta will be also equal to 0 in the case of point source. But when the length of the source is non-zero, in that case we get a finite value of angular spread of the beam due to the length of the source, and that comes out to be equal to length divided by the focal length of the convex lens. Now the beam, it gets diverged due to the length of the source. Now the beam also gets diverged due to the diffraction. As we had seen that when light falls on a slit, the light beam, it gets diverged in all the directions. Similarly, the light which is falling on the convex lens from the point source, it will also get diverged in all the directions. So there is divergence in the beam due to the diffraction. So now we are going to derive the formula of the angular spread due to diffraction. So here we had found out the angular spread of the beam due to the length of the source. Now we are going to derive the formula of the angular spread of the beam due to diffraction, because due to diffraction also the light beam will get diverged. Now there is angular spread in the beam due to diffraction. So we are going to find out the expression of delta theta, which is the effective angular spread due to diffraction. So beam gets diverged due to diffraction, and we saw the formula of beta and the delta theta, which is the spread of the beam due to diffraction. So we saw this formula already. So beta is equal to pi by lambda into b, which is the width of the slit, into sine of delta theta divided by 2. So the light beam, so let's say the light beam, it comes from this particular point. So when it will get diverged due to diffraction, so it will make a particular angle with the horizontal axis, and that angle is called as the delta, is represented by delta theta divided by 2. So the total angle, overall angle, so this overall angle will be equal to delta theta. So delta theta divided by 2 is the angle of diffraction which is made with the horizontal axis. So the total angle, overall angle, will be equal to delta theta, which is called as the effective angular spread due to diffraction. Now in the case of diffraction, this delta theta divided by 2 is considered to be small. So in that case, the sine of delta theta divided by 2, it can be approximately put equal to delta theta divided by 2, because when angle is small, sine of theta, it is approximately equal to theta. So over here also sine of delta theta divided by 2 can be put approximately equal to delta theta divided by 2. So this beta will now be equal to approximately equal to pi by lambda, as it is b, which is the width of the slit, it will remain as it is, and instead of sine of delta theta divided by 2, you will write delta theta divided by 2, because we are going to derive the formula of delta theta, which is the effective angular spread due to diffraction. Now we are going to take into account only those points on the screen where the intensity is significantly more. So now we are going to take those points on the screen where the intensity is large. Now the intensity is highest at this point, then intensity decreases as we move on the either side of this central point. So it decreases and it goes to 0, and we saw that the intensity it goes to 0 at beta is equal to pi and beta is equal to minus pi. This we have already seen in the previous lecture, that the first secondary minima is obtained at beta is equal to plus minus pi. So at this central point where we obtain central maximum, where the intensity of the light is maximum, so at that point on the screen beta is equal to 0. So now we are going to see the effective angular spread. So the light is coming from this point of the slit and is reaching the screen. So the light, it gets diverged in all the directions, but we are going to consider only the effective angular spread. So at this point, so which is in between beta is equal to 0 and beta is equal to pi. At beta is equal to 0, the intensity is maximum, and at beta is equal to pi, intensity is exactly equal to 0. So between these two values of beta, that is when beta is equal to pi divided by 2, so we will consider this beta is equal to pi divided by 2. We will consider this point on the screen, as well as we will consider the point on the screen where beta is equal to minus pi by 2. That is between beta is equal to 0 and beta is equal to minus pi. We take one point on the screen where beta will be equal to minus pi by 2 and beta is equal to pi by 2. So at this point of beta, that is at pi by 2, the intensity is large. So it is large only up to beta is equal to plus minus pi by 2. The intensity on the screen, as you can see, the intensity on the screen is maximum at beta is equal to 0, and it continuously decreases as you move towards the in the upward direction as well as in the downward direction, and it goes to 0 at beta is equal to pi. So we can say that at beta is equal to pi by 2, only up to beta is equal to pi by 2, the intensity is large enough, and after that the intensity drops to 0. So we are going to consider only these 2 points on the screen where the intensity is large enough. So we can say that the beam, it gets diffracted effectively up to beta is equal to plus minus pi by 2. So now we are going to find this delta theta, this whole angle delta theta. This delta theta is the angular width. It is the angle which is made by these 2 points at the center of the slit. So this is the slit, and the width of the slit is given by small b. So this angle which is made by these 2 points, that is beta is equal to plus pi by 2 and minus pi by 2. So this angle is made at the center of the slit. So this will be called as the effective angular spread, and after beta is equal to pi by 2 and below beta is equal to minus pi by 2, the intensities, they are very small. So we can ignore those intensities. So we can say that the beam, it gets diverged effectively up to beta is equal to pi by 2 and beta is equal to minus pi by 2. So now we are going to consider only beta is equal to plus minus pi by 2. So here we got the relation of beta and delta theta, that beta is approximately equal to pi by lambda into b into delta theta divided by 2. So this is the general formula which gives the relation between beta and delta theta. But here we are going to consider, to find the effective angular spread, we are going to consider only beta is equal to plus minus pi by 2. Now when beta is equal to pi by 2, or you can also write minus pi by 2. So when beta is equal to pi by 2, so what will be delta theta in that case? So we want to find this whole angle delta theta. So this delta theta, it comes out when beta is equal to plus minus pi by 2. So this delta theta, it comes out for the values of beta plus minus pi by 2. So instead of beta, you can write pi by 2, and pi by lambda, it will remain as it is. This b will remain as it is, and you will get delta theta divided by 2. So from here you can find the value of the expression of delta theta. So this pi will cancel with pi, 2 will cancel with 2, and you can easily get that delta theta will be approximately equal to lambda divided by small b. So this intensity, as we have seen, the intensity is large only up to beta is equal to plus minus pi by 2, and after that the intensity is very less. As we had seen, the intensity of first secondary maxima is very less as compared to the intensity at the center. So we can ignore these intensities to find the effective angular spread. So effective width of the principal maximum. So this is the principal maximum. Now principal maximum, it lies between beta is equal to pi and beta is equal to minus pi. So the principal maximum, this whole principal maximum, it lies between beta is equal to pi and beta is equal to minus pi. But the effective width of principal maximum, it lies between beta is equal to pi by 2 and beta is equal to minus pi by 2. So this is the expression of spread that we get for the case of diffraction. So delta theta, it comes out to be approximately equal to lambda divided by small b. So this is the angular spread due to diffraction. In the previous lecture, we had seen that spread due to the size of the source. We saw the light beam, it gets diverged due to the size of the source as well as due to diffraction at the convex lens. So there are two factors due to which the light beam gets diverged. Now the angular spread that we get due to the size of the source, or you can say due to the length of the source, it came out to be equal to L divided by F. Now L is the length of the source divided by the focal length of the convex lens. And just now we derived the formula of the angular spread of the beam due to diffraction. Now for the beam to be, so we saw this is the angular spread due to diffraction. Now we have been discussing the article of diffraction limited beam. Now what is diffraction limited beam? That we have seen that a beam is said to be diffraction limited only if it gets diverged due to diffraction and the divergence due to the length of the source is less. The divergence due to diffraction is more as compared to the divergence due to the size of the source. As we had said, the beam gets diverged due to the size of the source as well as due to the diffraction at the convex lens. So due to the size of the source, delta theta, that is the angular spread, it came out to be equal to L divided by F, and this angular spread due to diffraction, delta theta, it came out to be approximately equal to lambda divided by B. Now B is the width of the slit, or you can say it is the diameter of the aperture. So width is also called as, the slit is also called as the aperture. So this small b is the width of the slit, or you can say it is the diameter of the aperture. Now for a beam to be diffraction limited, the delta theta, the angular spread due to diffraction, must be greater than the angular spread due to the size of the source. So for a beam to be diffraction limited, the delta theta, which is the angular spread due to diffraction, it must always be greater than the angular spread that comes out for the case of the size of the source. So for the beam to be diffraction limited, that is, it diverges due to diffraction and not by the size of the source. The beam gets diverged due to size as well as due to diffraction, but the beam is said to be diffraction limited if the angular spread due to diffraction is greater than the angular spread due to the size of the source. Means this lambda by B, which is the angular spread due to diffraction, it must be greater than the angular spread due to the size of the source. So from here we can find out the condition that the beam is diffraction limited when the length of the source, is less than F times lambda divided by B. So you can rearrange this expression, so you can get the length of the source is less than F into lambda divided by small b. Now this is the condition that the length of the source must be less than this diffraction, only then the beam is said to be diffraction limited. So this small b can be replaced with capital D, which is called as the diameter of the aperture or the convex lens. In this particular case, we had the convex lens as the aperture. So this capital D will be the diameter of the aperture, which is the convex lens in this particular case. So this is the condition for a beam to be diffraction limited. So we just saw that delta theta due to diffraction, it must be greater than the delta theta due to the size of the filament. Only then the beam is said to be diffraction limited. Now what if the delta theta due to the size of the filament is greater than the angular spread due to diffraction? So in that case, the beam is said to be filament limited. So if L by F is less than lambda by B, then the beam is said to be diffraction limited, and if L by F is greater than lambda by B, then the beam is said to be filament limited. Now we are going to discuss about diffraction at rectangular aperture and also diffraction at a circular aperture. So till now we had a slit which had certain width, but it did not have any length. So the width that we have been using in the various articles, we derived the various expressions of intensity. So in that case, the slit had particular width, but it did not have any length. So the diffraction pattern in the case of a single slit, it came out of this form. That is, we had a central maximum and then we obtain secondary minimum on both sides, on either side of the central maximum, and then we obtained the first secondary maximum and then second secondary minimum, and so on. We obtained alternate dark and bright fringes on the screen. So this was the case when there was diffraction at a single slit and the slit had certain width but it did not have any length. So in this case, if the light is reaching from the two ends of the slits, so the light rays which are coming out of the two ends of the slit, if they had a phase difference of twice of beta, so we considered the light rays which were coming from the two ends of the slit, if they had a phase difference of twice of beta, in that case the intensity on the screen, it came out to be equal to I0 into sine square beta divided by beta square. This was the formula of intensity that we had derived for the case of a single slit, where twice of beta is the phase difference between the two light rays which are reaching a point on the screen from the two ends of the slit. So the intensity, it came out of this form. Now what if we have a rectangular aperture instead of a single slit? So now in the second diagram I have drawn a rectangular aperture. So this slit, it has certain width as well as it has certain length in this direction. So in this top diagram, the slit had only the width but it did not have any length, but in this case the slit, it has width and as well as it also has certain length. So the diffraction pattern in this case will come out to be of this form, where we will get a central maximum and we will obtain the dark and bright fringes on either side of the central maximum. So here the diffraction pattern that is obtained, it is actually a superimposition of two diffraction patterns. So one diffraction pattern will come due to the width of the slit and another diffraction pattern comes due to the length of the slit. So on the screen you obtain the diffraction pattern due to the superimposition of two diffraction patterns which are obtained in the case of width as well as for the case of the length of the slit. So in this case, the intensity of the light on the screen comes out to be equal to superimposition of two intensities. So the intensity will be equal to I0 into sine square beta divided by beta square. Now this is the intensity that is due to the width of the slit. So due to the width of the slit means twice of beta, it was the phase difference between the light rays which are reaching the screen from the two ends of the slit. And here we will have intensity is equal to I0 into sine square beta divided by beta square, where twice of beta in this case also, twice of beta will be the phase difference between the light rays which are reaching a point on the screen from the two ends of the slit, from these two ends. And the intensity, we will also get a factor of sine square in the expression of intensity. We will also get factor sine square gamma divided by gamma square, where twice of gamma here in this case, twice of gamma will be the phase difference of the light rays which are reaching the screen, a particular point on the screen, from these two ends of the slits. From these two ends of the slit, the light rays which are reaching a point on the screen, they have a phase difference of twice of gamma, whereas the light rays which are reaching the same point on the screen from these two ends of the slit, so they will have a phase difference of twice of beta. So the net intensity on the screen will be given by this formula, that is I0 into sine square beta divided by beta square into sine square gamma divided by gamma square. So this is the net intensity which we find out in the case of diffraction at a rectangular aperture. And you have to keep in mind that in the case of rectangular aperture, the diffraction pattern which is obtained, it is actually a superimposition of two diffraction patterns. In the case of diffraction at a single slit, we found out the relation of beta with theta. So we found out beta is equal to pi into b divided by lambda into sine of theta, where this lambda is the wavelength of light which is used, theta is the angle of diffraction, and this b was the width of the slit. So this is the relation of beta with theta. Now what is the relation of gamma with theta? So gamma will be having the same form. So gamma will be equal to pi by lambda into length of the slit, because twice of gamma is the phase difference between the light rays which are reaching at the point on the screen from these two ends of the slit. So let's say this length of the slit is equal to L and the width of the slit is equal to B. So beta is related with B, which is the width of the slit, and gamma will be related to the length of the slit with the same form. So it will be equal to pi into length divided by lambda into sine of theta. So this is the relation of gamma with the angle of diffraction. Now we are going to see the diffraction at a circular aperture. Now instead of a rectangular aperture or a single slit, we will have a circular aperture. So the aperture will be, the slit will be in circular form over here. So we have drawn only the cross section of the slit. So this will be one point and this will be another point, and this hole will be called as the diameter of the circular aperture, because we are drawing only the cross section over here. So you can draw it in 3 dimension also. So this whole length, which was the width of the slit in the previous case, now it will be the diameter of the circular aperture, because in this case the slit will be having circular shape. So the formula of the various maxima and minima which are obtained, it will remain the same. So I have considered this point on the screen, which is the central point, and central maximum is obtained at this point. So this is any random P1 point on the screen. It is any observation point. So the angle of diffraction is theta for this particular point. The light rays which are reaching this point, they are making an angle of theta with the horizontal. So this point, it has angle of diffraction theta. Now this point is located at y distance from the central point. So the distance of this observation point from this central point is equal to y. Now the condition of various maxima and minima which are obtained on the screen, they will be the same. Now b sine theta, it is the path difference. Now if b sine theta is equal to n lambda, so we have already seen the conditions of diffraction. So when b sine theta is equal to n lambda, we obtain minima. and when b sin theta is equal to n plus half lambda, we obtain maximum. So according to these conditions, the P1 point will be either maxima or it will be a minima. Now let's consider this P1 point is a minima. So the condition b sin theta is equal to lambda. So this first condition is satisfied at P1 point. So we are just supposing that at P1 point the first condition is satisfied. So at P1 point we will obtain a minima. Now at all the points which are at a distance of y from the central point. So P1 point is at a distance of y from the central point, and we are supposing that at P1 point the minima is obtained. So at all the points on the screen which are at a distance of y from the P point. So at all the points on the screen which are at a distance of y from the P point, minima will be obtained. So at this point also, which is at a distance of y from the central point, here also minima will be there, and also at all other points. So that will be nothing but a circular in shape. So at all the points which are on the circumference of a circle of radius y, at all those points minima will be obtained. So therefore diffraction due to a circular aperture consists of various circular bright and dark fringes. So it happens only in the case of circular aperture. In the case of a single slit, we obtain diffraction pattern which is of this form. In the case of rectangular aperture, we obtain diffraction pattern which is of this form, which is a superimposition of two diffraction patterns. But in the case of circular aperture, we obtain various rings which are either bright or they are dark, and this is because the slit that we are using is circular in shape. So at all the points which are at a distance of y from the central maximum, so they will be having zero intensity if P1 is the minima point. If P1, this is the minima point, then at all the points on the screen which are at a distance of y from the central point, minima will be obtained. So diffraction due to a circular aperture, it consists of a central bright disk. So as in the case of this single slit, the central point is a maximum. So maximum is obtained at the central point, and similarly in the case of rectangular aperture also the central is a maximum. So here also the central will be a maximum, and the central disk which is obtained, the central disk will be obtained in this case, so that will be bright. As we had seen, the center is always maximum, it has always maximum intensity. So in this case the central disk will be obtained, which will be, that is, it will be in circular shape. So a disk will be obtained which will be having maximum intensity, and that disk is called as Airy's disk. So as in the previous case, we got central maximum, and on either side of the central maximum we obtain dark and bright patches, and similar is the case in the case of rectangular aperture. And in the case of circular aperture, we obtain the central disk which is in, thus we obtain a central disk which is bright, that is, it has maximum intensity. So we obtain first maximum which is circular in shape, which is of the form of a disk. So that is called as Airy's disk. So first of all, at the center you will obtain a disk which will be whole bright. So this will be P point, and this will be the whole disk which will be bright, and then you will obtain a dark ring. So this ring will be having zero intensity, and after that you will obtain another ring. So that will also be having maximum intensity. So this is the first secondary maximum, and this one is the first secondary minimum, and this is the central maximum, and this is a circular disk and is called as the Airy's disk. So diffraction due to a circular aperture, it consists of a central bright disk which is called as Airy's disk, surrounded by alternate dark and bright rings. So this Airy's disk is surrounded by dark and bright rings. So now we are going to see how do we find the radius of this Airy's disk. Now Airy's disk is nothing but the central bright disk which is obtained in the case of circular aperture. So now we are going to find the expression of the radius of this Airy's disk. Now let's consider this point P1. This is the first secondary minimum. So this is the first secondary minimum, and between P1 and P point we obtain the central maximum. So this P1 point is considered to be the first secondary minimum. So this y distance will be nothing but the radius of the Airy's disk. So now we are going to find out the expression of radius of Airy's disk. So to find radius of Airy's disk, we are supposing that at P1 point we obtain first secondary minimum. That is, this y distance will be nothing but the radius of the Airy's disk. So at P1 point we have first secondary minimum, and for the condition of first secondary minimum, so this is the condition of minima which is obtained for the case of diffraction. So for first secondary minima, this b sin theta should be equal to lambda. So for the case of first secondary minimum, b sin theta, it should be equal to lambda. So theta is the angle which is made by these light rays with the horizontal. So these light rays are making an angle of theta with the horizontal, and they are reaching P1 point, which is the first secondary minimum. So we are using the condition of first secondary minimum, which is b sin theta should be equal to lambda. So at this point P1 point, b sin theta is equal to lambda. So from here we can find out sine of theta is equal to lambda divided by b. Now we are supposing that the screen is placed at a very large distance from the lens. So now we are considering this screen to be placed at a very large distance from the lens. So when the screen is placed at a very large distance, that is, we are considering the Fraunhofer diffraction condition. So in that case, sine theta will come out to be equal to y divided by the focal length of the lens. So this happens only when the screen is at a very large distance from the lens. So in that case, sine theta will be approximately equal to y divided by the focal length, because the sine theta is nothing but perpendicular over hypotenuse. But when this screen is placed at a very large distance, then hypotenuse and the base, they are of approximately same length. So this happens only when the screen is placed at a very large distance. So sine theta can be put approximately equal to y, which is the radius of the Airy's disk, divided by the focal length of the lens. So from here sine theta is equal to lambda by b, and sine theta is also approximately equal to y divided by f. So we will equate these two expressions. So we will get y divided by f will be equal to lambda divided by b. So from here we can find out the radius of the Airy's disk, and it comes out to be equal to lambda into f divided by b. Now b is nothing but, this b is nothing but the width of the slit, or you can also say that it is the diameter of the circular aperture. So this small b in this case is the diameter of the circular aperture, and in actual practice it has been found that the radius of the radius of this central bright disk, or you can call it as the Airy's disk, the radius of the Airy's disk y, in actual practice it comes out to be equal to 1.22 into lambda into f divided by. So this 1.22 factor, it comes from the experimental results. So in actual, the radius of the Airy's disk is equal to 1.22 lambda into f divided by the diameter of the circular